Hello everyone, it's Elizabeth from the Smart Stitcher. Today I just wanted to do a short video just going through how I measure for belts. And I've got my little diagram on the table in front of me, and I like to sort of get a sense of how long the belt is by measuring from where the leather folds over the buckle, so that is this point here, down to where the hole of most wear for that person is. So I'll measure the actual belt that they're wearing. I tend to use a soft tape measure so that I can then go along the length down to the hole that they wear most often, and that will then become my centre hole in my new belt. Once I know my measurements down to the hole of most wear, I then need to add on the rest of the allowances so that I can cut my leather to the correct length. At the buckle end, I like to add on an extra couple of inches to allow for the leather that's going to fold over and behind the buckle. Now this can be determined a little bit as well by the style or the type of buckle that you're going to be using and that style of belt that you're going to be making. For example, with this type of buckle, I just have a bar at the sort of the base of the buckle known as a heel bar, and I've also inserted a belt loop here. So I have just allowed the sort of standard an extra sort of 2 inches there to accommodate everything that I wanted that particular style to do. With a buckle that has a bar in the centre, naturally I don't want a belt loop sitting right here because it would get in the way of the buckle. So my belt loop is actually a little bit free and free motion, but I have still allowed for the extra 2 inches on the back of the buckle, as you can see there. So two very different styles of buckle, two different ways of doing things. Now this particular style of buckle again has a centre bar, but I've allowed extra on the back, as you can see, because I've got a belt loop that's sort of fixed in to the style of the belt as well. So this is much longer than the sort of the other examples I've just shown you. So it does depend on the nature and the style of the belt that you're doing. So it's always a good idea to sort of plan where you want your rivets to go, or if you're stitching it, where you want your stitching to go, so that when you put everything together, you know that you have enough overall length on your belt. So once I've worked out where the allowance for the buckle and that at that end, I then come down to this end and I need to decide on the spacing between my holes. Now when I'm making a belt for someone, the hole of most wear generally becomes that centre hole, and then I add on all my allowances. Now these can sort of really vary again depending on personal preference, nature and style of the belt that you're making, and the overall effect you want to create. I tend to find that as a general rule, having a hole distance or distance between my holes of a 1 1/4 inches works well for me, but of course you can do an inch, you can go longer, and that depends on your sort of personal style. So I add on to my overall length, I add on the 1 1/4 and 1 1/4, and then I have to decide what I wish to do for my tip. And it's always quite useful to work it out on paper first, and then you can sort of do the maths, double check everything before you've even cut your leather. Now this can vary. Some people might like 3 inches to the tip, some people might like 5. I tend to find somewhere between sort of 3.5 to 4.5 works quite nicely. And so I then add that extra length in, and then I've kind of got all my measurements, which I then add up, and I then cut the leather accordingly so I can get the right size. Now sometimes if people don't know their belt size, what I found quite helpful is I've actually got a very long belt, so I've kind of here's one I made earlier, as it were, and I've punched holes at regular intervals, and sometimes this is quite helpful if somebody's not certain. It's useful for them to try it on, and then we can get a fit that's particularly comfortable, so that might be something that helps you as well. So to summarise, make sure that you have planned everything really carefully so you know how much you're adding on to go behind the buckle, how much you need for the length of your belt, and then any additional allowances that you are going up to. Now you don't have to have 5 holes, you could have 7 holes, you could have more holes if you wish, but you've just got to remember where your hole of most wear is going to sit, and then how much you're going to have either side of that. And of course once you know where that hole of most wear is, don't forget to add everything on accordingly. And happy belt making!